Hello and welcome to Financial Technology Frontiers Live. We are in today for a wonderful conversation in the area of cyber insurance. And I have with me today a great luminary who is an expert in the area of cyber insurance to have a chat with us. And she is Jennifer Wilson, who is the Senior Vice President and Head of Cyber Practice as a leader at Hub International. Jennifer, welcome to Fintech Frontiers Live.
Thank you so much, Babu. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
How have you been seeing the noticeable difference between the cyber risk insurance, which has evolved from the pre-pandemic times to the pandemic times to the post-pandemic times?
Yeah, so as you know, we've been seeing significant changes lately in the cyber insurance market. We're now almost 3 years post-pandemic, so it's almost old news to talk about it at this point, but just to help frame the discussion and by way of reminder, when prior to the pandemic, we experienced decades of a soft market in the cyber insurance space. And then once the pandemic hit and we were thrust into a widespread remote work environment, businesses were focusing on getting their employees set up remotely to keep the business running. And nobody was looking over here at network security, except, of course, the threat actors. And they identified this as a prime opportunity to strike, and strike they did. And the cyber attacks came on fast and furious, primarily with the ransomware attacks. And those attacks really hit the insurance market like a tsunami. But unlike a tsunami, there was no end to the storm. The ransomware claims were coming fast and furious, and they were coming twofold with frequency and severity. Typically, you'll have one, but not the other. We saw both. And it literally turned the cyber insurance market upside down. And the underwriters had to figure out very quickly how to right-size their books of business. And they did that in several different ways. Some of the ways they did that was to jack up premiums we were seeing increases of 50% to 150%, sometimes 200% increases. We saw retentions being doubled and tripled. We saw capacity drop. We saw coinsurance on ransomware. And that was kind of what happened on the pricing and policy side. But then there was another aspect to this, and the underwriters started to look under the hood. They wanted to see what the organizations were doing by way of network security. And that's when we all suddenly started hearing about MFA, multi-factor authentication. Prior to the pandemic, nobody knew what MFA was. And now today you could stop anyone on the street and they can tell you what it is. So we went from a soft market to a hard market literally overnight. And we all very quickly became well-versed in the cyber security vernacular.
Wonderful. And as you rightly said, we have seen a hard market and we have seen the height of the hard market, right? In the recent times, have you seen it softening any further, or has it remained as it is? What is the kind of change that you are noticing now?
Well, you're right. I think that we have seen the height of the hard market. In recent months, we have seen a decrease in the rate increases. So we haven't seen flattening. We're not going to see flat renewals, but we have seen some sort of competition in the marketplace right now. We've seen some rate increases drop, which is great. So we're seeing a little bit of relief on the premium side. Some of the coinsurance, some of the limitations and restrictions that we saw from the markets are starting to get pulled back. So we're not seeing quite as much limitations that we were seeing before, but along with that reduction in rate that we're starting to see, we are seeing other things that, could, provide concern. We are seeing some carriers that are concerned with catastrophic risk. We're seeing carriers concerned about supply chain risk. They're asking our clients for copies of contracts and to ensure that the third parties that our clients are contracting with have robust security controls as well. So it's now not just about what controls our clients have, but the controls that their third party contractors have. So we're seeing a shift in focus, but I think the reduction in rate that we're seeing is going to be well received by a lot of the organizations that we represent.
In the recent times, there has definitely been a lot of shortage of people in the cyber security as well as cyber insurance space. How has it impacted your role as a cyber broker?
Yes, I think we're all experiencing a talent shortage in the cyberspace, from brokers to carriers, on the underwriting side, on the claims side, on the placement side. And we're all kind of scrambling, trying to figure out how to fill that gap. Some of the ways that we've done that is to train up. We've been able to attract younger talent and provide them with the opportunity for growth, career change. And we're seeing a lot of folks doing that as well outside of our business. I think the positive of the talent shortage is that it's providing great opportunity for people who are looking for either a career change or advancement in their career. And I know at the height of the pandemic, we saw the Great Resignation. And I'm hopeful that some of those folks that, took a step back from the workforce back then are looking for ways to re-enter. And if so, I can say that cyber is a great area to get into, and now's the time to get into it.
How are the SMEs taking it? How are they trying to balance the requirement and at the same time keep their businesses going, which needs definitely to look at the costs?
Yeah, I think probably the first 4 months following the pandemic were probably the hardest for everyone, brokers, organizations, the underwriters. That shift to the hard market was a shock. The organizations weren't prepared. They hadn't budgeted for the network security requirements that the underwriters were asking for. And so some of them made the decision to self-fund rather than implement the security controls and to pay those astronomical increases. And I think very quickly they realized it didn't make financial sense to self-fund that risk. And so they came around and realized that, it was really important for them to implement the network security and purchase the cyber insurance, because even those two things combined were still significantly less than, the cost of a potential ransomware attack. So I think first 4 months, clients were forced into it. I think now we're sort of on the other side of it, and organizations are realizing that implementing the cybersecurity is only going to benefit them in several ways. It's going to help prevent their risk of attack, but it's also going to provide them with better, more comprehensive, more competitive options on the insurance side of things. And I think that whole shift that, we were all forced into has had a positive impact, because now everybody is implementing at least the basic, the MFA, and in some cases, the EDR and endpoint detection and response. And I think that has had an impact on the number of claims or the success of the claims. I think we have seen a decrease in the ransomware attacks, and that has to be correlated to the security that has been implemented. So there's a lot of positives that have come out of this. It wasn't easy and it was painful in the beginning, but I think everybody has recognized the benefit of that, and they've all kind of come around. When the pandemic first hit and the ransomware claims were first coming out, the target was the large enterprises. And I think the threat actors, the hackers soon learned that those large enterprises had more robust security measures in place than the SMEs did. And so then we saw a big shift from the large enterprise to the SMEs. And then suddenly the SMEs were the big target. And now I would say the SMEs are the majority target for the ransomware attacks. But as they continue to implement stringent controls, I think that we're going to force that shift even further down. We're going to see further decline in ransomware attacks.
Interesting. What kind of digitalization is happening in the cyber insurance business? What kind of automation is happening there? And what is the trend for the future in that space?
Yeah, I think the future looks great in this space. I think that everybody's starting to invest in technology. We're seeing insurtechs popping up left and right. And insurance companies are utilizing technology to help with predictive modeling in the cyber space. We now have mature claims with which they can draw upon. We're also seeing automation. Brokers are looking into investing in technology to help with streamlining the application process, to help clients understand their risk assessment prior to going to renewal. And we're looking for ways to help our clients understand their vulnerabilities and perhaps patch or fix their vulnerabilities before they are submitted to underwriting, just to improve their risk profile on the underwriting side. So everybody is looking for ways to streamline, innovate, look for ways to make the entire process more efficient and more accurate. And in my opinion, if you're not looking for ways to innovate and invest in technology, you're going to be left behind.
Absolutely. And ultimately, technology has to be taken in the forefront, and it is not just a luxury, but a necessity to make sure that things work for all the businesses. Excellent, Jennifer.
Thank you, Babu. One thing I'd love to end on is something that somebody just mentioned to me, and I thought it was worth talking about. Somebody said to me, Jennifer, how did we get cyber so wrong? How did we end up where we are today? And I said, tell me more. What are you saying? He said, how did organizations not get network security right in the first place? And how did underwriters not get network security requirements in place well before the pandemic? And I disagree with that we got cyber wrong. I don't think we got cyber wrong. I think what happened was just a cascading sequence of events that no one could have predicted. So there is no way we could have had proper controls in place to have prevented what happened. I think it was, I heard somebody, refer to this whole dynamic in cyber as the perfect storm. And that's exactly what it is. Had it not, nobody could have predicted the pandemic, right? So nobody knew that we were going to have this pandemic and we were going to be forced into a decentralized work environment. Nobody would have predicted that. And if you would have told organizations, hey, in the near future, we're all going to be working remotely, they would have laughed you out of the room, right? And then on the network security side, if the CISOs, I'm sure CISOs have been, screaming about getting more, a bigger budget for a network security. And if they would have said, hey, someday down the road, if you have, a lot of remote workers, we're going to have some, risk here. Well, the organizations would have left them out of the room and said, there's no way, we're never going to allow, widespread remote environment. So if it hadn't been for the pandemic, we wouldn't have had the widespread, decentralized work environment. If we didn't have that, we wouldn't have the, enormous opportunity for ransomware attacks. So just one thing kind of led to the next and led to the next. And at no point could anyone have predicted what was going to happen. So I disagree with the assessment that we got cyber wrong. We didn't get cyber wrong. What we did is we evolved as the attacks evolved. And we will continue to do that, because as we start to prevent further ransomware attacks, well, the threat actors are going to get creative and they're going to find a different way to attack. And then we're all going to have to adjust and evolve, and the security measures are going to change. And so too will we have to change. So I think it's an ever evolving process, and we just all have to remain vigilant and able to change and shift with the times.
Great. Thank you very much, Jennifer, for a wonderful conversation. And we look forward to more such interesting conversations with you in the future.
Thank you so much, Babu. I look forward to speaking with you again in the future.